Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ podcast. On this episode, I have my esteemed and ultra handsome colleague, Mike Austin, in the house. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. I've just got off vacation, so yeah, I'm tanned, I'm rested, got a little sun in the hair.
Nice.
It works good on me. I don't think I would qualify as handsome, but I'll take it. I'll take it where I can get
relaxed. You look relaxed. You look content. You know, this is all good. So I wanted to bring Mike on because I know Mike's a fan of these the same way I am. Today, we're talking about road trips. And I just completed a road trip across the United States. And Mike's a van guy. So you know Mike road trips everywhere because he's got a VW van and he packs his family and he goes all over the place. So I think on this episode, we're going to touch a little bit on road trip etiquette, the types of road trips there are, how to properly perform a good road trip from two experienced road trippers. And then you can reply in the comments and tell us if you agree with us or disagree or whatever, what have you. So, Mike, your road trip, did you just take a road trip to go on vacation or did you fly?
I know I drove, but it was only like 4 hours. So,
okay.
There's so many different rabbit holes that speaking of 4 hours, like 4 hours is one where it's like, yeah, you just go and you push it, like you try to not have the bathroom break. I mean, you could go either way, or you could be like, hey, it's only 4 hours, stop for lunch, turn it into a 6 hour trip. Right. I tend to, if it's under 4 hours, I tend to just go. But I grew up almost every year when I was a kid, we would go out west to Colorado for spring break in the family van. We had like a full size Chevy.
Oh, wow.
And so I have something in me that, like, if I don't go on a long drive at least once a year, I get like a weird itch, like when you're on the drive, you're like, why am I doing this?
Right.
But afterwards, you feel better. It's like you had to get something out of your system. You just had to be alone with your thoughts for 12 hours.
Yep. I totally agree. And I agree. I think, the micro road trip, which is one you do, I'll consider 4 hours like a micro road trip, right? It's far enough or it's short enough that you don't want to fly, but long enough that it takes half a day to get there. Right. So yeah, I generally break road trips up into 3 different categories. Like there's the old school cannonball, right? Point A to point B as fast as you can. Then there's the kind of the traditional family road trip where you pile everybody in 140 cubic square feet and try not to kill each other over the course of that trip. And then there is the hybrid, which I like, which is just like, you got to get there as quick as you can. But at the same token, you got a couple hours to stop and take pictures of certain things. Right. That's kind of my favorite. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I'm really bad at, I'm getting better at it. I've been, and I just did it this spring. We went Michigan. We stopped at Mammoth Cave. We stopped in Huntsville at the Space Museum. We went to Orange Beach, and then we went down to Florida and then came back. I'm bad at doing stuff on the way. I'm of the cannibal mind. It's like, just get there. Yeah. Like you don't want to be on the road, and both work. But I do have to say that, like, it's a lot. Maybe it's just getting older, but it's a lot nicer to just do 400 miles a day and like make an intentional stop and have a good dinner. Right.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for just, especially if you have a co-driver, do the 18-hour drive, especially going home. It's going home, you want to get home as fast as you can. But I think, break down the phrase road trip. Like, road is part of the trip.
Yeah.
Take a couple hours, take pictures. I'm the worst at that. And I really want to get better. It's like, pass them. Oh, should we stop? Should we turn around? I never turn around.
No. That was really nice. Oh, it's too bad we missed it. Right.
Yeah. So I'll channel some of you with the picture taking and that.
Well,
but we have been planning lately. My road trips have been more planned and more intentional, where it's like, where are we going to stop? What's I think that makes a huge difference. I haven't gone back to ordering the triptych from AAA. I do love this,
okay.
But
okay.
I'm not to that level of planning.
I wish I was, but I'm pretty much the original mindset where it's just a cannonball from point A to point B. I mean, I did one last week from Saturday to Tuesday where I drove a Hellcat Dodge Durango from Vienna, Virginia back to San Francisco. I left on a Saturday. I was home on Tuesday. It was 3,100 miles. That was a haul. And for those out there, Hemmings just bought this Durango Hellcat. You're going to see it in an upcoming video series because we're going to be building it into something really cool that we'll talk about another episode. But my goal was, because I had to be back at 4 days, was to kind of plan it out and to do the kind of hybrid model, which was the stop at some really cool places if I could, if they were close enough to the interstate where it wouldn't take me half a day. Right. So like I had blazed up from Virginia to Indiana, and that was only, and then I don't know if this is good or bad, but like it was only like 600 miles or 640 miles. And I was like, man, I should have done more, because now the other subsequent days after that were going to be so much more from a mileage perspective. But I wanted to stop and see a buddy of mine, which I did. So that part was good. But yeah, I have a tough time. I have a really tough time stopping and taking pictures of things, and I don't understand why. I don't know if it's because we all have like a finite amount of time when we're on the road, or you're just like, all right, I shouldn't physically spend as much time here. I don't know, but yeah, it's difficult.
Well, and you took interstates the whole way, right? Like you didn't.
80 the whole way across, man.
Yeah. So I wonder if this is geographic. I know that you're originally an East Coast guy, but you've been adopted by the West Coast. But on the East Coast, there's a lot of places, Vermont, where the home of Hemmings, there's not a lot of interstate, and everything is so close that if you live in the East Coast, a road trip might be that like slower weekend thing, because you can get up to Maine in 4 hours. So you make a whole day of it, stopping somewhere up on the way. And whereas, California, there's Tahoe is maybe the closest thing, and that's still hours. Like, yeah, it's just a little different. I think when you look at the total distance you have to cover, maybe that influences how you approach it. But that's another thing. I wish I took the side roads more often. Like, I do too. Well, how do you plan for a road trip, right? Okay, so let's get scenarios. Give me the Mike Austin, I'm 1,000-mile road trip. I'm by myself. And the Mike Austin, I got my family with me. Same thing, 1,000 miles. What's the difference in planning? Okay, by myself, I'm looking at food. That's the first thing I'm looking at. When am I leaving? When do I need to get there? And 1,000 miles, I've done 1,000-mile days. It is kind of a bucket list thing. You should do a 1,000-mile day just to say you've done it. But that's realistically 2 days. So yeah, like what's somewhere between the 400, what's somewhere in the 40 to 60% distance for the overnight stop? What's there? What's interesting? And then also, just look at the map and are there places I haven't been? Are there museums I want to go to? Like, what is that 1 hour stop where I'm not going to get antsy about losing a bunch of time, but I'm not going to go by this place very often. I mean, that's it. And I would say go ahead. So if you're by yourself, is that 1 hour stop a food stop generally, or is it a thing? Probably a food stop. I mean, because the things are like, I don't have a master list. I know, that's another thing that's probably a good idea to have for road trips. It's just like, you hear something cool, write it down, go to the list and be like, oh, I'm going through Indiana. I got to go to this place. It just depends. Way back at Car and Driver, we had a Hyundai Genesis, and we were finishing out this super long test. So everyone we did like 10,000 miles in 10 days or something. And so for my trip, I made it an excuse to go try a couple of cheeseburgers and go to the EAA museum in Oshkosh. So that was like a thing, but that wasn't necessarily I'm taking a trip to get somewhere. So my family, this is the thing. If you want to enjoy the drive, or like take the longer road trip, family is a great way, because you have a kid. You can take a kid 16 hours straight, but the trick is you leave like right at bedtime and drive through the night. Gotcha. Which is also a pretty good strategy for avoiding traffic, because there's like some corridors you go on I-80, it's a lot of trucks, but usually with the hour restrictions on trucks, driving the graveyard shift, not a lot of trucks on the highway, not a lot of traffic. But anyway, you have a kid, you got to stop for lunch. Your average speed is going to slow down anyway. And at that point, you're just like, yeah, we'll do 300-400 miles. And then it gets interesting because then it's like anywhere with grass, you're like, where are we driving? Where do we want to get lunch? And with the van having like the table and having a little fridge, we're very much and or still in pandemic, I guess, but post lockdown, we're very much like, we'll just pack a lunch and like, find somewhere nice. So that's how that's planned, is like, break it up into 400-ish mile increments, and then think about a lunch stop or think about an overnight destination. And that was what we did this spring. And I got to tell you, like, I think I told you this before, but for the listeners, like rolling into your day destination at like 4 o'clock, check into your hotel, set up your campsite, whatever, and then go to dinner, and then get in bed by 8 or 9. That is, as somebody who typically gets in the car and pushes themselves so hard that then you get there and you're exhausted. Yeah, it is a whole different world. It's amazing. It's really, and I think that's part of it, is like, I don't speed as much either. Stop trying to make it, like think old school, where it's like, well, the car's a lot faster than a train, so let's not try to get it close to airplane speeds.
Oh God, I think I need to adopt that, because the trip that I just took, there were certain things that I would see, like we were going, I was going through Illinois, and I did a quick Google search and found that the Joliet prison was only 8 miles off the interstate. And I was like, I have to see that. Like, I have to go there, because like Blues Brothers is one of my favorite all-time films. So like, I have to bring this truck and get a picture in front of Joliet, which I did. Right. Yeah. But then, and it was great. But then in my head, I'm like, shit, that was 22 minutes. I'm like, I got to make up 22 minutes. So then you get back on the road and you put your foot down, and, you just hammer. And it's interesting. Like when you're by yourself, when I'm by like tomorrow, a perfect example, tomorrow morning, I have to drive to Corona Beach in California, California. That's 417 miles away. Now I have to be there by about 1, which means I'm going to leave at probably 6 a.m. Right. And I know once I get on the 5, the 5 is like America's Autobahn. Like, unless you're in the desert, the 5 is America's Autobahn, and you can pretty much hammer on the 5. But I would like to stop. I would like to get places that I could just kind of enjoy them. Let me ask you, did your van help you do that? As opposed to, like, did the road trip change when you brought your van, as opposed to driving a sedan or some kind of smaller car?
Yeah, I think so. And again, some of it was just like imposed when we first started traveling with our daughter. She's 1 or 2 in the van, and so that's like, a 4, she's 4 now. A 4-year-old is like pretty easy. Like a 2-year-old, you gotta be ready for, like, who knows if they're gonna go to sleep or if they're gonna take a nap in the middle of the day and then be up all night and you're trying to entertain a kid in the dark. So that was a huge factor. But the van too, because it was like our pandemic hut, and the car I bought before that was my Saab, which I bought in San Clemente and drove straight through across the country. Again, I don't know why. I could have taken a vacation day. I could have stopped and like saw some sights somewhere. So yeah, the van did it. And then the other piece is like, the van, it'll go 80. It's not unpleasant to go 80 in it. It's just really noisy. And then you're just like hammering your fuel economy. And and I'm like just cheap enough that it's like the difference between 16 and 18 matters to me. So I think the van's a big part of it.
Right. And for those out there that don't know, what is this majestic vehicle?
It's a 2001 VW Eurovan Weekender. So it has like this lounge seating, rear facing seats, and it's the last big VW van, not the Caravan clone. So it's front wheel drive. So it's boxy, but like 90s looking. Yeah. It's a lot more sleek than the Vanagon before it, but it still looks, properly, I don't know, German.
Does having the van on a road trip, like, have you taken the van on your road trip with just you and your wife, or just you by yourself? Have you taken it
Oh,
places?
oh yeah. I mean, we're fully in a van rabbit hole now. But then it's ideal because you have all this space and you
Yeah.
pop the top, so the downstairs is the living room. Like you get somewhere, you just chill out, and then you climb up into bed when you're ready to go to sleep. And yeah, I mean, there's no setup. It's like it campsites are honestly like a great way to travel. And if side note, if you have an EV, you can get a 220 hookup overnight. But like I'm camping is campsites are cool as a way of traveling and a way of travel lodging because you're just in the woods. It's very relaxing.
Yeah.
But I say that not having to set up a tent. So
Right.
I would say the other side of the coin though is like in an older car, right? Like you don't have cruise, or maybe you don't have AC,
Right.
or maybe the AC is just okay. Um, I think about doing a road trip in some of my older cars, like taking a weekend trip with my wife, and that's the same thing. It's like I don't want to stay. I don't want to go on the interstate. So I think we're onto something here where the car does kind of dictate the mentality. Like that
Yeah.
Hellcat, how was I mean that's just set the cruise and go forever, right?
I mean, it was the best road trip vehicle I've ever been in, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, but I also think it was for the type of road trip that I was doing. It was a high speed burn across the country. That's what I needed to do, and it has 710 horsepower. It weighs 5,700 pounds. It doesn't care about weather. It doesn't care about speed. It just doesn't care. And so, like, it's fine in traffic at 35 miles an hour. It's also fine at 130 miles an hour. Not that I would know, but probably is. And it just makes your life easy. But it's just a big blunt instrument that kind of bends the tarmac and the atmosphere to its will. It's fantastic. Having said that, I've taken road trips in my old cars. Like I've driven my 68 Charger across the country many times. I've driven like when I bought my Trans Am a couple of years ago in Dallas, Texas, and drove it home. Like that was miserable. That was like totally miserable. And to your point, which is a great point that I actually never thought of, it would have been the perfect back road car, like the perfect off the interstate car, because it wasn't meant for that. But instead, it was meant to do 60, between 40 and 60 all day long in like a smaller enclosed area where you could really enjoy it. Where the interstate, it wasn't made to do what modern cars do, so it just wasn't nearly as enjoyable.
So you're on a road trip or you're planning for a road trip. What are like the staples you do? I mean, do you like, a mandatory half tank like stretch and bathroom, or like, do you have a special kind of snack or something?
Yeah, if I'm by myself, I have my own regimen, right? So I
Yeah.
have a foam cooler, like a 7-Eleven foam cooler, and I fill that with water, like vitamin water, regular water, a pack of beef jerky, a couple of packs of beef jerky, and a couple of bags of almonds or like trail mix. And then I'm a tank to tank guy, and that's what I do. I've got my Valentine 1 radar detector up on the dash. If I can avoid driving at night, I will, because then I can't see where law enforcement is at. And I will boogie. I will, like, the longest day that I did last week was 868 miles. That was a long day. But to your point, I left one of the days at like 5 a.m. and I checked into my hotel at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. So it wasn't bad, because I was like, oh, that's not bad. Right? You get to your hotel, like you said, you go out, you have a little bite to eat, you're in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
But you're gassed, right? And if you have something with range, like the Durango was getting almost 350 miles to a tank at speed, that's a long time to sit down without taking a break. It doesn't matter how fast you go. Covering 350 miles takes a long time. But yeah, my personal staples are a small cooler with some fruit, beef jerky, nuts, a really good radar detector, water, and then extra battery packs for all my electronics in case for some reason something that the car takes a shit.
Ah, interesting.
And I always have some kind of coat. Like, even if it's like it's the middle of summer, I still had a down jacket with me because I have broken down in the middle of the desert at night without the proper gear. And it's just like these things that go into the back of your head. Like, you road trip enough and you go, oh, not leaving the house without that. Nope, not leaving the house without that. Even if I like fly into someplace and road trip back, I will go to Walmart and buy like a cheapy version of the things that I need just to have them. So yeah, it's as opposed to like the normal road trip that most people would probably do, where you stop and you can just, take the sights. I haven't adopted that mentality, and honestly, it's to my own fault because I know there's so many things that I'm just driving by and missing, and it kills me. That I think we should do an old car road trip and really plan it out so we could see some cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we should work on that. I was going to say, the things that you do along the way, the thing I've done now, I've adopted in the last 2 years is if I'm going more than 4 hours, so I'm going on like a trip, not just like going somewhere for the weekend, is I check tire pressures. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's funny. My wife was like, I never would have thought of checking the tire pressures. And a lot of cars too, not a lot of cars, some cars have a different tire pressure for one to two people and fully loaded. So if you're going fully loaded, you want to put more air in the tires.
Yeah.
And I'm otherwise super cavalier. Like, I might take some oil if as far as the car is concerned. It's a mixture of complete trust in the car and anything that's gonna break, I gotta go to a parts store anyway, or I'm just done. But yeah, I do like to bring some healthy snacks. The nuts are good because they're they're not carbs,
right?
And they got some salt on them because
yeah.
To get a little bit scientific, you're using a lot of brain power. You're gonna need electrolytes. That's why you're tired, is because your brain is working so fast at speed. And then water. Like, I'm a big refillable guy, so I have an Nalgene. I used to take a Camelback, which is like a water backpack with a straw on it. And I would click it to the headrest, and then I'd have the straw right next to me. So then you can get water without really looking down or moving your hands from the road.
That's like promo, dude. That's that's quality right there. You're not even taking your hands off the wheel to grab a water bottle. You're just you're just turning your head and sucking on a straw. Wow. I thought I was good. That's like professional level. That's quality.
And then the other one is aspirin. Like, if you're doing 2 days or a full day, take a little bit of aspirin. You're gonna feel better getting out of the car.
Yeah, well, it's also, I think aspirin. You're absolutely right, and I think that one does a couple things, right? If you're stationary, if you're sitting for 5, 6, 7, 10 hours at a time, you don't want to get a DVT, right? A deep vein thrombosis.
I'm not gonna lie, I have worn compression socks on a long drive before.
Yeah, and that's like, I'll take an aspirin before I get on a long flight. If I'm going like on a 6-8 hour flight, if I get in the car, like tomorrow morning before I drive, I'll take a little baby aspirin just to take it. Some people might not agree with that. I personally think it's a good idea. It couldn't hurt, so why not? But I think that, like you said, going back to the vehicles, I think it makes a really big difference. And I think that I'd really like to do an off the interstate road trip. I haven't done one of those in a million years, and that would be great. I think Mike, we should do it and pitch it to Hemmings, and they could pay for it, and then we could go somewhere.
Yeah, we'll figure out where. We'll get some Hemmings people involved, and and we'll go from there.
All right. So what kind of car? Now think about this, right? I'm a big dude. You're a big dude. What would be the perfect road trip vehicle for the two Mikes to get in?
Oh, you and me. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking of my current garage, and like, you're not going to fit in the Alpha, and the Camaro air conditioning is broken. And I tried to charge it. It's something in the compressor. It's not the charge, which is means it's probably never going to have AC. So we need something old and cool. Probably. I almost hate to say it, but it seems like a Corvette would be appropriate.
Oh wow. Okay. You know what?
Maybe a C4. I'm thinking like a little more modern. With the storage room. Like, is C5 old enough yet? I don't
Eh.
know.
So like a late 80s, early 90s C4 with like
Yeah,
an LT, like an LT1 or an LT4.
yeah, like an LT1. Although now I'm kind of going like, well, okay, those aren't like as much of a grand tourer. So, maybe we switch it into something like a big old Cadillac, or like, an XJ12 or something like that.
Okay, well,
Can you fit it?
XJ12.
You've been shopping. Mike has been like cautiously interested in a Jaguar XJ12 for a while. So you're
Yeah.
still shopping those? Because that would probably fit both of us.
I think an XJ12 would. I think I have personally never driven one of those cars. And I think I look at them and I think they're stunning. I think they're one of the most underrated shapes ever made. But I've just heard nightmare after nightmare about the mechanics of those cars. Now, if we had one with a 350 or an LS swap, like, I'd be inclined to roll that. I'd still be inclined to do it with the V12, but I would just be nervous.
There's an inline six too. You can get the inline six.
I would do it with the 6, and I don't know if those warranted. I don't know if those concerns are unwarranted. Like I said, I have literally no experience with anything Jaguar ever in the history of my life, so I have no idea if that's right or wrong.
Yeah, I think we need a GT. And you could go, but it like coupe for sure, and
Okay.
then like wasted, inefficient use of like cabin space, like tiny back seat, big hood. So we can go, and then you can go anywhere on that front. I mean, you could pick a car from any era. You could get some Malaise Cadillac. You could get some golden era, like, you could get like a really nice Pontiac Grand Am or something, or Grand Prix, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah,
I like this. Okay, so this was an unintentional curve that we decided to take, but I like where it's going, because I think that I like the big coupe, right? I like the something a little bit out of the ordinary, right? We have to set a year cap, whether it's like, say, no newer than 1993 or 94 or whatever, because that's 30 years old now at this point. I don't think we care about engine size, whether it could be a straight 6, V6, V8, right?
Oh yeah, I'm thinking like, I'm gonna be stuck in a car with you. I haven't had that close quarter stuff. You get to know someone really well, and I'm just guessing based on things that are like, you're gonna need to be comfortable. You're gonna need space. If you want to recline, take a snooze. That's where my head is at on this. Is like,
Gotcha.
I don't want Musto's like discomfort, or if it breaks down, I want him to be like, feeling safe when he has to sleep in the car.
Okay, I appreciate that. It's very considerate. So no, man, I think we need to kind of cobble this together. I think this is something that we should do. I think this is something that we should run up the Hemmings flagpole and see if they're at all interested in this. And I think it'd be fun. It would also be fun if we could do this, and we could, with the computers and stuff that we have, we could do a rolling podcast. It would be kind of neat to do something in this car, do a rolling podcast, set up at a campground or something like that with some Wi-Fi. And okay, this is not the podcast I was expecting, but it's the podcast that I'm really enjoying, because I think we've got something here. So, all right. Well, this is good. All right, so here's the deal. For everybody out there listening, we have a comment section on YouTube. We have a comment section at the Hemmings site at hemmings.com. Write down what you think a good, say, you want to cap it at 93?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Cap it at 93, 1993. Anything up to 93 as a big coupe, right? That the two Mikes could jump in and road trip somewhere. Are we putting a cap on distance?
I mean, I don't know if we want to think that far. In my head, I'm thinking, we just got to plan automotive destinations. Like, in the Midwest, we've got, we've got museums in Detroit. We've got the Gilmore on the west side of the state.
Yep.
You go down, you got Auburn Court Duesenberg. You've got the new one Brownell's doing in Cleveland.
That's right.
And then even further south, Kentucky and Ohio and Tennessee, you got stuff. So if we're leaving from Michigan, there's plenty. We could make it an automotive themed trip. there's so many museums on the Eastern Seaboard. You can do the same thing. I don't know about distance is what I'm saying, but I think like, do it something with cars and then figure it out,
I think so.
work backwards from there.
Yeah, I like this. Okay, we got to start working on this because neither one of us have any other things to do during the day aside from throwing something else on the burner. All right, this is good. All right, so now everybody else's job out there in podcast land, write in the comments, send us a note about what you'd like to see us in, because if we can make this happen, we will. Hemmings doesn't know about this yet because we just came up with it, but they might. And if they say no, I don't know, we might still do it anyway. Mike and I got
we could just do it.
That we can just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a bunch of cars. I like this. All right, this is rad. All right, Mike. Well, as always, thank you for coming on the podcast and now striking up something else that we have to work on, which is fine. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. Are you still on vacation?
No, I've stayed in the vacation spot one extra day, work from here, and then I'm going home tonight. So
smart move. All right, very, very good. Well, have a safe and wonderful ride home. And as always, everybody check out Hemmings.com for some great automotive stories. Check out Hemmings.com for our classifieds, and also go to the auctions because who knows, we might actually buy this road trip car off our own website. Would kind of make sense, right? So yeah, that's it. Mike, again, thanks for joining, buddy. It's always good to see you.
You bet. Glad to be here.
Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.